Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Surprise Jab Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Ruger, surprising you with new topics every single week and jabbing you with your daily dose of UFC information. We're coming off a red-hot weekend. This second week of February was pretty fun, pretty eventful weekend. I hung out with a bunch of guys I haven't seen in a while, went to the bars, went to a party. I mean, it was absolutely good times. We also had a UFC event Saturday, and after watching another, I should say, of these UFC Apex cards, let me just say that I am over the Apex, right? The Apex is so boring, and we got another mediocre UFC card this weekend. But nonetheless, we'll be covering all the fights, talking about the results, because some of it was shocking. As well, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl, which went down yesterday. There was some good, there was some bad. There was just some, can't believe that happened. As always, going to be talking about the 48 Laws of Power. We're on Laws 30, 31, and 32, as we're almost at 48, so that series will come to an end. Going to talk a bit about some UFC updates, and actually, we'll look at some new movie trailers, Super Bowl commercials, all sorts of fun stuff on today's episode. But yeah, let's get right on into everything. Life's been good. Ladies and gentlemen, life has been good. Staying busy. I actually have to apply for some internships, touch up the resume today. I got to get out there. Or at least not even apply to some internships, but at least look at and kind of take some notes on what could be potentially out there because, I mean, summer's coming. It's going to be May soon. I go on spring break in like under 2 weeks, which is kind of odd because I'm not really ready for spring break. I'm not really tired of school yet, so I don't really know, but we'll see what comes of the future. I already know God's got me. And when you got God, you got all you need. Alrighty, let's get on into everything we're going to be talking about today. Kicking us off with a little UFC news. I do have some a big announcement, a little breaking news, and this is all thanks to the lovely Ariel Helwani. Of course, Ariel Helwani, notable journalist for the MMA community, even sports in general. I mean, he does all sorts of stuff. But he recently announced, or basically on his show today, he came up with stuff that the new favored main event for UFC 300, that's right, the major UFC 300, is rumored to be your welterweight champion Leon Edwards taking on Khamzat Chimaev, which I do find very fascinating. I'm here for it. I would very much enjoy it. But, there has been some talk that apparently Stipe Miocic was offered to fight Tom Aspinall at UFC 300 for the interim heavyweight championship, and Stipe Miocic turned down that fight. Of course, they were aiming to have Stipe and John Jones, but John Jones had to decline. As well, Alex Pereira announced he will not be moving up to heavyweight this year, which means we can all assume that Alex Pereira will not be fighting on UFC 300. And along with the light heavyweight lines, Magomed Ankalaev, you're currently number 3 ranked men's light heavyweight, was mentioning wanting to fight Jamal Hill after his next fight. And so it's looking like Jamal Hill versus Alex Pereira will be the main event of UFC 301 in Brazil. Also announced on Ariel Helwani's podcast, they were going over so much stuff there, his show, I should say, not podcast. But Arnold Allen, notable men's featherweight ranked number 6, is aiming to return in the summer on a potential UK card going down in July. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more rumors about fights to come in July. And as well, they also mentioned that Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis is in talks for UFC 300. But I'm hoping that if they could do Adesanya and du Plessis and Khamzat and Leon, that would really save this card. But as for now, the main rumor, Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev. Just a rumor, by the way. Just a rumor. There's no validity to anything right now, and it appears Dana White is kind of struggling to cook up a main event. I mean, it's tomorrow, February 13th, we will be officially 2 months away from the card, and we still don't know. And we've gotten so many good fights. All right, first off, the card is absolutely loaded. We've looked at UFC 300 a numerous amount of times, but there's just something missing. They don't really have a main event still, which is super weird. Usually you get the main event and build around it. You don't build the card, then get a main event. We'll see what Dana White and Hunter and who else? It's Dana, Hunter, someone else, the executive board who builds the fights. But I have good faith in the UFC. Not too many big official fight announcements. They did announce a fun one for UFC 301 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil on May 4th between Johanderson Brito and Jack Shore. Johanderson Brito is 4-1 in the UFC, and he's just been on a finishing streak, knockouts galore, been doing absolutely amazing. He's 16-3-1 professionally, and he actually holds wins over Diego Lopez, Jonathan Pierce, and Andre Feely. Knockouts over Jonathan Pierce and Andre Feely. Very, very impressive. He actually held titles in the Araka Fight League and the Fusion FC Fight League. His opponent, Jack the Tank Shore, 6-1 in the UFC, recently moved up to featherweight from bantamweight after losing to Ricky Simone. He hails from Wales, and he is 17-1 professionally. Big wins over Makwan Mirkani, Timur Valev, and Hunter Zur. He was a champion in Cage Warriors. That should be a very fun fight. I'm going with Johanderson Brito. I think Johanderson Brito is an absolute killer. And by the way, the winner of this, don't be surprised if you see them taking on someone like Alex Caceres, Edson Barbosa, and Bryce Mitchell, and someone who's kind of like a gatekeeper in the UFC right now. Don't be surprised if you see any of those guys fighting one another. Also announced the fight between Jake Hadley and Charles Johnson on a card on May 11th. Don't really have a location for that card, but May 11th, Jake Hadley, Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson just beat Azat Maksum, the undefeated Kyrgyzstan, and now he's back at it. Doing his thing, he takes on Jake White Kong Hadley, who's 2-2 in the UFC, 10-2 professionally, wins over Malcolm Gordon and Carlos Candelario are his notable ones. He was a flyweight champion in Cage Warriors and EFC Fight League. As for Charles, huge win over Razak Masum last time out. He's also beaten Jimmy Flick, Zalaga Slumalogoff. His job will always be on the line when he's fighting. But Charles, happy to see you. I do lean towards Jake Hadley for that fight, though. May 11th. Wow, that'll officially be my summer. My summer starts May 4th, actually. So UFC 301 will be a great way to kick off the summer for me. Other fights announced, UFC 302 going down June 1st. Doesn't have a location yet, but does have a date for that 302 card. I wonder where that will be, as Jocelyn La Pantera Edwards will be taking on Aileen Fiona Perez in the women's bantamweight division. Aileen Perez is very notable. She's the girl who was twerking after she won her UFC fight. Very, very odd. Jocelyn Edwards, just decision fighter, just fighting for her job every time she fights. And recently announced today the last big fight, if you will, going down on that May 11th card, which doesn't have a date or location, as Terrence McKinney, T-Rex, will be back to take on Esteban Ribovic. Esteban Ribovic, 12-1 professionally, lost last time out. And Terrence McKinney, 5-3 in the UFC, he's 15-6. All 21 of his professional fights have never gone the distance. Absolutely crazy. I'd say his biggest win's probably over Matt Frivola, which was in his UFC debut. But it's always fun to watch Terrence McKinney fight in that one. I lean towards Aileen Perez and Terrence McKinney in both those fights, personally. That's just how I feel about all of it. Also announced, which I don't know if we talked about on Thursday's episode, I'm starting to think we didn't, was for UFC 299, Felipe Lins will be taking on Ion Cutelaba in the light heavyweight division. Felipe Lins, he's fought at heavyweight, fought at light heavyweight. I believe he beat Ovince St. Preux last time out. And as for Ion Cutelaba, he holds wins over Khalil Roundtree Jr., Devin Clark. He is a super fun fighter to watch. It should be exciting to see all those guys go to battle. And girls, guys and girls, going to battle. We don't segregate on the ladies' part. I will say, for UFC news, it was a huge letdown seeing that there was nothing announced at the Super Bowl. The rumor was that maybe at UFC 300 there would be an ad for it, but nonetheless, there was not right now. All we can hope is for something good. So yeah, Dricus du Plessis versus Ursula Asanya. Dricus du Plessis versus Hamza Chimaev is also an option from what I'm seeing. And Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad, I kid you not, are all in play to be the main event. And I honestly really hope it would be Bilal Muhammad, because that would be so funny, because I think everyone would just kind of be like, are you kidding me? Because, Bilal Muhammad, notably a hated fighter. He is super funny. Super funny. Bilal Muhammad, I can't really hate him. But you know what? I won't ramble on much more. We got other stuff to talk about on the pod. That's all your UFC news for now. We'll be back Thursday, though. We'll be back Thursday with some new UFC news. I say we move into the 48 Laws of Power, because we got some new fun laws to talk about. I never realized how popular this book was, The 48 Laws of Power. One of my buddies actually told me that he read it a while ago and that he still reads it to this day. And I've actually got my dad hooked on reading it now. And it's just so informative. It's so interesting to hear these laws to obtain power. And I'm thinking I might try and put some more of them to use in my day-to-day life so I can become the most powerful person in the world. I'm very much joking, but let's continue to dive through. Law number 30 says, make your accomplishments seem effortless. Here's what the judgment says. Your actions must seem natural and executed with ease. All the toil and practice that go into them, and also all the clever tricks, must be concealed. When you act effortlessly, as if you could do much more. Avoid the temptation of revealing how hard you work. It only raises questions. Teach knowing your tricks, or they will be used against you. This is a very fair point. I mean, everyone likes to think that when you succeed, you can do it without any issues, without any harm. You can just become the man with no effort put in, but unfortunately, it always takes a lot of effort, and that's just kind of how it goes in the world. But I mean, I've been honestly trying to do this. I notice whenever I say things, whenever I do things now, I just have to make it seem easy. I have to make it seem like it wasn't hard, when maybe it would have been. I'm trying to see if there's a fun quote. They had a lot of stories in this one. It was about this, there's this Japanese family, Rikyu, I think it was, and he had something very nice in his garden, and he had this very famous man visiting him. And the famous man pointed out that there wasn't something in his garden that would make it fit, and Rikyu or whatever, the owner of the garden or whatever, he sent a bunch of his servants. He worked super hard to obtain something for this garden overnight, and when he brought it back, whoever the visitor was, the noble visitor, was basically like, wow, I don't even know how you did this, and Rikyu was very, very low-key about it. Basically was just like, it just happens, and when you're graceful, you're able to make people seem like it takes no time and effort to do something. You really can seem powerful. They also talked about how Harry Houdini was always able to do his tricks and make them seem at ease, and even when he could do them fast, he would always kind of drag it out, which is actually another law. But as for a lot of his things, he always made it seem pretty simple. Here's a good quote from the wonderful Balthazar Gracian. Keep the extent of your abilities unknown. The wise man does not allow his knowledge and abilities to be sounded to the bottom if he desires to be honored at all. He allows you to know them, but not to comprehend them. No one must know the extent of his abilities, lest he be disappointed. No one ever has an opportunity of fathoming him entirely, for guesses and doubts about the extent of his talents arouse more veneration than an accurate knowledge of them, be they ever so great. So yes, it's all about what people see. They don't really need to know how you do it. Here's something from Adam's Curse, written by William Butler Yeats in 1865. A line of poetry will take us hours, maybe. Yet if it does not seem a moment's thought, our stitching and unstitching has been naught. What could that possibly mean? Well, it could pertain to how long it takes to write something, and yet how fast it takes us to read it, which you can really think about when it comes to a lot of things in life. When people admire your work, they're just admiring. They don't know how much you actually put in to do it, which is such an interesting thought. That's such an interesting thought, such a broad thought. It's so intellectual for no reason, but I mean, when you think about it, well, that's just how it is. Here's the image for you. The racehorse. From up close, we would see the strain, the effort to control the horse, the labored, painful breathing. But from the distance where we sit and watch, it is all gracefulness, flying through the air. Keep others at a distance, and they will only see the ease with which you move. The reversal to this is maybe just a zeal to conceal your works creates an unpleasant, almost paranoid impression. You're taking the game too seriously. You basically have to be careful with how much you concede. So for every one of these laws, there's always a bit of a opposal, reversal, if you will. And as for this one, it just pertains to certain situations. Our second law, we're going to talk about law number 31, control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. The best deceptions are the ones that seem to give the other person a choice. Your victims feel they're in control, but are actually your puppets. Give people options that come out in your favor, whichever one they choose. Force them to make choices between the lesser of two evils, both of which serve your purpose. Put them on the horns of a dilemma. They are gored wherever they turn. I love this one very much, where you can get others to do work for you. That's what I aspire to be. I aspire to own a business and get other people to make the money for me. I mean, that should be the dream for everyone. And even in certain situations where you may not want to do something, you give someone the option of doing two things that you would want to do. Such as, let's say you don't want to go out super late. Okay, so you give an option to your friends, or like, okay, guys, we can either do this or do this, and whatever one of the two options is, it best serves your interest in the end. So sort of something like that. The amazing example they gave was of Ivan IV, who was later known as Ivan the Terrible, and he always gave multiple options to his common folk, his people over he ruled over, and they would always benefit him. And he's always careful with what he said and did so that it always benefited him, which is, as selfish as it may seem, what a lot of us need to do to not fall to the bottom of life. Here's a fun quote from the Little Brown Book of Antidotes, written by Cliff Fademan Ed in 1985. J.P. Morgan Sr. once told a jeweler of his acquaintance that he was interested in buying a pearl scarf pin. Just a few weeks later, the jeweler happened upon a magnificent pearl. He had it mounted in an appropriate setting and sent it to Morgan together with a bill for $5,000. The following day, the package was returned. Morgan's accompanying note read, "I like the pin, but I don't like the price. If you will accept the enclosed check for $4,000, please send back the box with the seal unbroken." The enraged jeweler refused the check and dismissed the messenger in disgust. He opened up the box to reclaim the unwanted pin, only to find that it had been removed. In its place was a check for $5,000. Let's kind of try and break that down a bit. So, J.P. Morgan, notable, was it robber baron of his time, notable billionaire, trillionaire, if you will, ruler of the world, wanted this pearl, found a jeweler who he's like, "Hey, give me this pearl, give me, what was it? He wanted a pearl scarf pin." Jeweler makes it for him, sends it with him, says, "Here, take $5,000. No, here, I'll give this to you for $5,000. There's a certain trust between them. And Morgan sent it back, and on top of the package was a note that says, "I like the pin, but I don't like the price. If you will accept the enclosed check for $4,000, send back the box with the seal unbroken." He's like, "Okay, I want it $1,000 cheaper." The jeweler refused the check and dismissed the messenger in disgust, and he opened up the box to reclaim the unwanted pin, only to find that it had been removed. In its place was a check for $5,000. So here's the thing to it, is that J.P. Morgan would have either sold this to him for $4,000, or he would have gotten it to him normally. So he got the pearl, or he got the discount. It was kind of set up where he was going to get whatever he wanted no matter what, which is super, super interesting when you look at it like that. Some of the keys to power. Words like freedom, options, and choice invoke a power of possibility far beyond the realm of the benefits they entail. When examined closely, the choices we have in the marketplace, elections, our jobs, tend to have noticeable limitations. I notice that a lot. We are limited so much more in our lives than we are made to seem. I mean, come on. You cannot just go out and do whatever you want. There are limits to things. This unwillingness to probe the smallest of our choices stems from the fact that too much freedom creates a kind of anxiety. The phrase unlimited options sounds infinitely promising, but unlimited options would actually paralyze us and cloud our ability to choose. Our limited range of choices comforts us. The following are among the most common forms of controlling the options, such as color the choices. And this was a favored technique of Henry Kissinger, President Nixon's Secretary of State, who pretty much secretly ruled President Nixon without him realizing it. Kissinger would propose 3 or 4 choices, each for a situation, and no matter what, they would all benefit him. And what he would kind of do, well, they wouldn't all benefit him, but he would make him choose the best one. So basically be like, do you want the red one? Do you want the blue one? Do you want the green one? Or do you want the yellow one, which is super nice? You kind of throw something in with something. You're kind of downplay the others. Like, do you want this blue thing that kind of like wears out? Do you want this red thing that gets kind of old? Or do you want this green thing, which is everlasting? Stuff like that. Another technique, or was it a form, if you will? Force the resistor. Force the resistor. One of the main problems faced by Dr. Milton H. Erickson, a pioneer of hypnosis therapy in the 1950s was the relapse, where his patients might seem to be recovering rapidly, but their apparent susceptibleness to whatever he was doing was kind of wearing off. So they would relapse into their old habits, they would blame the doctor, and stop coming to him. So to avoid this, Erickson would give them the choice to relapse before or relapse after. So they were already thinking about it. And this is a good technique to use on children and other willful people who enjoy doing the opposite of what you ask them to do. So you push them to choose what you want them to do by appearing to advocate the opposite. So what Dr. Milton would do, he'd be like, okay, so you can either relapse now or you can relapse later. Okay, and no one's going to want to relapse now. Okay, relapse later. So they're going to choose to relapse now. This kind of works with children. Like, okay, do you want to brush your teeth or make your bed first? You can choose to do one or the other. You don't really say like, hey, do you want to go make your bed? Hey, do you want to go brush your teeth? No, you say, hey, which one do you want to do first? That's kind of how you do it. Another form is alter the playing field. John D. Rockefeller set out to create an oil monopoly, but he knew if he bought up all the smaller oil companies, they would figure out what he was doing and fight back. So instead, he began to buy up the railway companies that transport the oil, which then forced the other companies to go through him, which is such a genius move. In this tactic, your opponents know their hand is being forced, but it doesn't matter. The technique is effective against those who resist at all costs. Another form is the shrinking options. The late 19th century art dealer Ambrose Villard perfected this technique. Customers would come to his shop to see some Cézannes, which are some famous paintings. He would show 3 paintings, neglect to mention a price, and pretend to doze off. The visitors would have to leave without deciding. They would usually come back the next day to see the paintings again, but this time Villard would pull out less interesting works, pretending he thought they were the same ones. The baffled customers would look at the new offerings, leave to think them over, and return you again. Once again, the same thing would happen. Villard would show paintings of lesser quality. Finally, the buyers would realize they had better grab what he was showing them, because tomorrow they would have to settle for something worse, perhaps at even better prices. A variation of this technique is to raise the price every time the buyer hesitates and another day goes by. And you hear this all the time. It's like, oh, this deal will only last for one more day. And then you actually look tomorrow and it went up $1. You're like, okay, I'll wait again. It went up $2 tomorrow. So if you keep shrinking down the options, keep raising the price a bit, you can kind of play your hand. Another one, the weak man on the precip. The weak are the easiest to maneuver by controlling their options. The great 17th century provocateur Cardinal de Retz serves as an unofficial assistant to the Duke of Orleans, who was notoriously indecisive. It was a constant struggle to convince the Duke to take action. He would hem and haw, weigh the options, and just wait until the very last moment. We all know people who wait till the very last moment. But what Retz discovered was a way to handle him. He would describe all sorts of dangers, exaggerating them as much as possible until the Duke saw a yawning abyss in every direction except one, the one Retz was pushing him to take. This tactic is similar to color the choices, but with the weak, you have to be more aggressive. You have to work on their emotions, use fear, terror to propel them into action, fun stuff. Try reason, and they will always find a way to procrastinate. And I have a buddy who is just like this, and I think I might have to start using this technique on him. Another one, brothers in crime. This is a classic con artist technique. You attract your victims to some criminal scheme. You create a bond of blood and guilt between you. They participate in your deception. They commit crime and are easily manipulated. The great con artist named Serge Stavitsky in the 1920s, he entangled himself in the government so much that they didn't even dare prosecute him once they found out that he was swindling them. Because, well, they would have been exposed themselves. Their involvement can be subtle in this scheme. Even the hint of their involvement will narrow their options and buy their silence. This one seems more maniacal. Another one is the horns of a dilemma. This is from what we talked about way earlier with the 2 horns of whichever way you go. This idea was actually demonstrated by a general in the American Civil War. Another general was deciding which way to go from the left or the right. So he divided his army into 2 wings, and so whichever way the rebels attacked, they would be hit, So let me paint the image for you. The horns of the bull backs you into the corner with its horns. Not a single horn which you might be able to escape, but a pair of horns that trap you within their hold. Run right or run left, either way, you move into their piercing ends and are gored. Here's a good quote from the great Niccolo Machiavelli. For the wounds and every other evil that men inflict upon themselves spontaneously and of their own choice are in the long run less painful than those inflicted by others. I mean, come on. You want to, if you're gonna harm yourself, you want to do it to yourself. You don't want someone else to harm you. Then you just get angry. Then you just get upset. You're like, well, I got swindled by this guy. If you swindle yourself, you only have yourself to blame. But when you have someone else to blame, you get angry about that. Our final law for today, law number 32, is play to people's fantasies. The truth is often avoided because it is ugly and unpleasant. Never appeal to truth in reality unless you are prepared for the anger that comes from disenchantment. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance or conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. There's great power in tapping into the fantasies of the masses. The example they gave here was this guy who went by the name of, where is it at? Bragadino. This was in the high Renaissance era of Europe, and it was, he basically was somehow able to spread rumors that he could turn anything into gold, or he knew a way to multiply gold. So Venice brought him in because they were becoming very poor, and they put him up, and he lived a super high life, and he kept saying like, oh, I'll do this. And, when they came to him, they're like, hey, you're not living up to your promises. You're not doing this. He said, well, now you need to wait 7 years for this to happen. So they waited a year, they waited 2 years. And by the third year, they're like, all right, we're sick of this. Get out of here. And so he left. But there was always the thought that the promise of him being able to multiply all their gold would come to fruition. So they brought him back, put him up in a high rise. And he basically lived this high baller life with, how did anyone find out that he was actually a scammer? His name was Siprat Magmuna. He had lived in Venice for several years, but he reincarnated himself because he saw how the gloom had settled on the city, and everyone was hoping for a redemption from some indefinite source, and he became that indefinite source. This comes from the great charlatans who mastered controlling people. Here's a quote from Emperor Tokugawa Ieyasu of Japan in the 17th century. If you want to tell lies that will be believed, don't tell the truth that won't. That quote is super powerful. That might be quote of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have found our quote of the week. I'm gonna have to pin it right here. If you want to tell lies that will be believed, don't tell the truth that won't. If no one's gonna believe your truth, then why even tell a lie? But if you can tell a big lie, there you go. David Hume had this quote, no man need despair of gaining converts to the most extravagant hypothesis who has art enough to represent its favorable colors. So no man needs to worry about gaining converts to his extravagant ideas when they have bad colors. I don't even know. Some of these are kind of weird. But here's how they kind of compare the reality to the fantasy. They bring up, I believe it's 4 different comparisons. Yeah. So one is, the reality is change is slow and gradual. It requires hard work, a bit of luck, a fair amount of self-sacrifice, and a lot of patience. The fantasy you can portray is a sudden transformation that will bring a total change in one's fortunes by passing work, luck, self-sacrifice, and time in one fantastic stroke. Another reality, the social realm has hard set codes and boundaries. We understand the limits and know that we have to move around the same familiar circles day in and day out, but the fantasy is we can enter a totally new world with different codes and the promise of an adventure. Ooh, that's a good one. Another reality, society is fragmented and full of conflict. The fantasy, people can come together in a mystical union of souls. Like, oh, it's harmony. It's absolutely amazing. The reality, death, the dead cannot be brought back. The past cannot be changed. The fantasy is sudden reversal of this intolerable fact. A lot of these are kind of like, what are you going to do with these? But there's something you can put into effect. Let me think of something I could do. It's all about promising someone more than you can. I think I might use this when I'm getting a job, is I can promise just an unsurmountable amount of change that comes to wherever I go to work, when in reality I might not change the job too much, but if I promise, the idea of me being able to change the company in the summer I'm there, that could be something. Here's the final image to paint for you. The moon. Unattainable, always changing shape, disappearing and reappearing. We look at it. Imagine, wonder, and pine. Never familiar. Continuous provocateur of dreams. Do not offer the obvious. Promise the moon. Ooh, I really like that. I really like that one. Just go big. It's go, the saying, go big or go home. It has a very foundational meaning. Come on. I feel like I got to promise the moon to a lot of people, I got a lot of people counting on me. That's what happens when you are primed for success. Those will be our 48 laws of power for this episode. Fun stuff. Fun stuff. I always love reading about the 48 laws of power. Read it before bed, read it during the day. I read it all the time. But what's up next? I mean, I want to talk about the Super Bowl before we talk about UFC Vegas 86, our review of the fight night. But I did take note of some movie trailers and some commercials from the Super Bowl. So we're going to look at some of these movie trailers and commercials, or talk about them, since I can't really show them. We're not really at that level of scientificness, technologicalness, and I don't even know if I could because of copyright. But there's a notable amount of commercials. I mean, there are some weird ones. Favorite? If I could choose a favorite commercial from this year's Super Bowl, I don't know. I didn't really have one, if I'm being honest. I mean, honestly, looking through them, there's just none that really piqued my interest. None that I just went, wow, that was so memorable. I just went through and watched a video of the recap, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I recognize that one. Yeah, I recognize that one. Yeah, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. First one that came up, Popeyes with Ken Jeong. I believe that's his name, Ken Jeong? Kim Jong, whatever. He's been in a lot of shows. I mean, he was in The Hangover. He was like Dr. Kim or Ken or whatever on ABC. I mean, super funny guy. He was in some Popeyes commercial, which I'm like, Popeyes, they're still that big. I mean, honestly, I never get Popeyes. Does anyone get Popeyes at all? I don't even know if there's a Popeyes around here, but you know what? He basically had like the own Frozen scene from like Austin Powers when he like comes up and he's like freezing and they like dry him off or whatever. But then it was just like in today's society, it's kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying when I look back on it, so not the best. There was a Skechers ad with Tony Romo and Mr. T, where it was just Mr. T yelling and Tony Romo being his normal self. And I won't lie, Tony Romo and, oh my gosh, whoever Tony was with on the Super Bowl broadcast, they were just unbelievable with some of their commenting. It was so brutal with the Taylor Swift and how good Patrick Mahomes is. It's getting annoying. Oreo ad commercial, it had like the Trojan horse, aliens, one of the Kardashians, like the mom Kardashian, she was in it. I don't know what was going on there. You had a Doritos commercial where at the very end, Jenna Ortega showed up. She's actually in a film with not Martin Short. It's the guy from The Hobbit. It's the guy from the Black Panthers. He's like the detective, where he's like a professor and she's like a student. There's like this weird sexual relationship. I don't know what movies like that give me weird vibes. Was a T-Mobile ad, boo T-Mobile, where you had the two guys from Suits doing like an audition tape. Bradley Cooper was there with like his mom. Jennifer Hudson was doing it. The one lady from Jurassic Park, like the original one, she was in it. I mean, a lot of celebrities. The whole theme of all these commercials was just celebrities. Nothing that actually made me want to buy the product. So many Temu ads. Oh my gosh, Temu. Temu just kills me. It's such a scam. Hellman's had an ad. That's right, mayonnaise. I don't like mayonnaise at all, personally. It was with Pete Davidson, this chick from SNL. She's also been in movies. Cannot think of her name. It was with a cat or something super dumb. M&M's had a commercial with Scarlett Johansson, some NFL legends. Booking.com at Tina Fey. There was a lot of ads for Houses.com and Apartments.com. They must have gotten a big budget this past quarter. Drumsticks had one on a plane with like Eric Andre, super weird. Pringles with Chris Pratt. I love that Chris Pratt is always portraying people. He's portrayed Mario. He's going to be the voice of Garfield. He was a Pringles man. It's kind of getting comical. Mountain Dew, the chick from Parks and Rec was in that. The one who like was Chris Pratt's girlfriend in the show. It was a Baja Blast ad, and I do like Mountain Dew Baja Blast. I might actually go pick some up later, not even gonna lie. Starry had an ad with Ice Spice. And I won't lie, as much as it is to joke about Ice Spice, she is actually so annoying. It actually just kills me. And she was up there with Taylor Swift celebrating. She's such an industry plant. It is just unbelievable. Uber Eats had actually, I like the Uber Eats one. It was like Jennifer Aniston was in it. It's like Uber Eats will make you forget something, and like everyone was forgetting like simple things. It was dumb, but I'll pick that as my favorite. Okio was like the yogurt. Had Shannon Sharp and the one guy from Bad Boys. That's not Will Smith. I cannot remember his name for the life of me. He was in it. And I think one of the most popular ones was the Dunkin' one with Jennifer Lopez, Tom Brady, Ben Affleck. Oh my gosh, the one act, Ben Affleck's buddy. Oh my goodness, I can't think of his name. It'll come to me. He's been in so many movies. But Yeah, Dunkin', probably with the most popular one, but I don't really care for Dunkin'. Donuts are overrated, and I do not care for their coffee, personally. I'm not a big coffee guy. In general, don't really like the Dunkin' frozen coffee. I've only had it once, though, so I suppose I can't judge too much. Movie trailers, though, that is where the fun comes in. I'm a movie guy, and they had so many good movie trailers. I was absolutely loving it. One actually that comes to mind right off the bat before I get to my little list I made was the one with John Krasinski directed it, A Quiet Place. It's like day one, and it has some, I don't know who the main lead is, but it does have the guy, he's been so many shows, y'all would recognize him, been in the MCU, he was Ronan the Accuser's like right-hand man. Oh my gosh, it looks good. It's basically right when the monsters first get there, and people don't understand that if you make noise, they get you, and it kind of takes the approach of the movie's gonna start off loud in like the city, and just go to pure silence. I'm here for it. I don't even know when it comes out, but I'm excited for it. One of the most excited movies that I am excited for, that they showed a teaser trailer, if you will, for, was Deadpool 3, which is titled Deadpool and Wolverine. It's going to be so fire. It comes out in July. It's basically Deadpool. Of course, at the end of the second one, he got like this watch that lets him manipulate time. The TVA from the MCU comes at him, and they bring him in and say, hey, you're part of the MCU now. And he's doing so many fourth wall breaks. I mean, he is just fighting everyone. Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds, amazing. Love it. Another Ryan Reynolds movie that is coming out, which I just have no interest in, it's definitely a kid's movie, is called If, which is like an acronym for Imaginary Friend, and it just does not look good at all. Like, no appeal. Like, I'm never going to be in a scenario where I'm like, I want to watch that, even with Ryan Reynolds. Nothing whatsoever. Speaking of superheroes, The Boys, they had an ad. The Boys, of course, TV show on Amazon Prime. They had an ad, but it was like how they don't do ads like normal people. They run it through like their fake news program or corporation called VOT. It's like their TV ad was like an actual ad they would run in their universe. It was pretty funny. Didn't really give us a time. I'm hoping The Boys comes out in summer at some point. I am pumped for it though. Homelander is such a crazy character to see. Love Billy Butcher, love Huey, love the whole Boys cast and crew. Interesting movie coming out this year is Wicked, which is based on The Wizard of Oz. It has Ariana Grande in it. Absolutely no interest from me personally, but it is weird to see adaptions like that coming to life with like a remake. It's not even a remake. It's just like, it's like a weird, I don't even know how to describe it. I guess it's a remake, but it's like not an official remake. I don't know. An official remake that they did show was Twisters. They're remaking Twisters. Of course, the movie from, I think it was the 80s or 90s called Twisters. Basically about tornado, basically about storm chasers. Glenn Powell stars in it. Glenn Powell is taking over. That boy must have sold his soul to Hollywood to be getting all these movies. Speaking of a lot of movies, Kung Fu Panda 4 coming out this year. I'll probably see that, but Kung Fu Panda 4 is giving me Cars 3 vibes. It's giving me they're replacing Lightning McQueen with this younger female character, and I just don't care for it. I hate to see Lightning McQueen get passed up. I don't want to see my boy Poe get passed up. I'm going to be pissed. I love my Kung Fu Man. I love the Kung Fu Panda movies. 1 and 2 are amazing. 3's decent. I don't know what I expect from the 4th one. Speaking of Kung Fu, I mean, they have this John Wick, this Indian John Wick, like knockoff, if you will, directed by produced, I should say, by Jordan Peele. The notable guy's done so many movies. Jordan Peele's done Get Out. He's done, what's another one I saw? Nope, he did that one. He did Us, a lot of horror movies. But this one is called Monkey Man. Or Monkey, I think it's Monkey Man. And it's basically about an Indian John Wick. He's avenging his family. He's kicking butt, which I do like the action sequences I was seeing in it, but it was pretty goofy. It just say like, oh, it's an Indian John Wick knockoff. Other movie coming out in May, actually May 3rd, is The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. I'm looking forward to that movie. It does look pretty good, and I like Emily Blunt. I like Ryan Gosling, and it looks like a typical Netflix movie, which I'm all here for. It speaks about a stunt guy, and I think the main actor goes missing, and the stunt guy has to go find him, and he actually does real life stunts. It's just how it goes. A little action movie with Ryan Gosling. That's right up my alley. And the final trailer, which I was absolutely in love with. By the way, no Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla times Kong trailer. That's disappointing. But I will tell you, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes dropped a trailer, and oh, we could just tell more about the villain. There's like this evil monkey king, this evil ape king. The whole theme is like uncovering the past, because now apes are fully in control of humans, and humans are like the primitive species. Huge Planet of the Apes fan. I'm super pumped for this film. It is, I don't know when it comes out. I hope it comes out soon, like in the summer, in May. I mean, I'm absolutely ecstatic. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, definitely my favorite trailer from what we saw from this past weekend. But yeah, those are my thoughts on all the trailers, all the commercials. There were so many. It's time to just let them go. Not the movies, though, but the TV commercials. Kind of tacky, kind of dumb. What should we talk about next? I think we just have the Super Bowl, ladies and gentlemen, and then my little analysis of UFC Vegas 86. So yeah, moving along nicely, because I got a lot to get to today. Not too long of an episode, as we haven't had too much to go over. The Super Bowl, of course, if we all know, the Chiefs won 25-22. It was... The game got exciting at the end, but I mean, it was a super boring first half. Third quarter was kind of boring. Didn't pick up till the end. And just the fact that Chiefs won was so disappointing. It made me so sad. I was rooting for the Chiefs, man. Not the Chiefs. I was rooting for the 49ers, man. And they just couldn't get it done. Oh, man. Patrick Mahomes wins Super Bowl MVP. And he became I think he became one of the few, people he set so many records. They love to ride Patrick Mahomes, if you know what I mean. Game went from, Patriots, it was the 49ers scored first with I love how I say the Patriots. The 49ers scored first with a field goal, then I think they got a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey catching a touchdown from Juwan Jennings, super funny. Chiefs kicked a field goal right before the end of halftime. Chiefs then scored twice in the third quarter. Really back and forth, fourth quarter. Chiefs got 2 field goals. 49ers, I think, had a field goal and a touchdown, yes, and they missed the extra point, or the extra point was blocked, which turned out to be one of the most crucial plays of the game. Overtime, 49ers take the ball first. We all knew the rules. Apparently some of the 49ers players were saying we didn't know the rules. We didn't know that, if we score first, they don't get the ball back, but it wouldn't matter nonetheless. Chiefs come back, score a touchdown. McCole Hardman from Patrick Mahomes, and yes, 25-22, the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Look at the stats, the overview. I mean, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. I'm just so annoyed. Team stats, Chiefs have 455 total yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards, more yards per play, more first downs. Oh my gosh, better third down efficiency. They're in more plays. There were 10 punts in this game, which was very boring. I will say the penalties were pretty even. 6 called for each team, more yardage totals for the Chiefs. Time of possession, separated by 2 minutes in favor of the 49ers. And 2 fumbles, though, by the 49ers, and a fumble and a pick thrown by the Chiefs. This definitely wasn't the prime of both teams. We definitely kind of got a laid-back version of how good these teams actually are. The defenses for both these teams, amazing. Offenses, kind of sloppy. 49ers, final stats. Brock Purdy threw for 255 yards and a touchdown, ran for 12 yards. Not too bad of a Super Bowl, but not enough when it came down to the end. Juwan Jennings, 1 for 1 for a touchdown with a 21-yard touchdown pass to Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey rushed for 80 yards on 22 carries. Very, very nice from Christian McCaffrey. He also had 8 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. Dude's a stud. Christian McCaffrey, you should have won MVP. Brandon Ayuk, 3 catches, 49 yards. Had a couple big plays. Juwan Jennings, 4 catches, 40 yards, and caught a touchdown. Juwan Jennings got to be one of the few people to throw a touchdown pass and catch a touchdown pass as a wide receiver. Deebo Samuel, 3 catches, 33 yards. Got injured at one point, but came back. Very fascinating. Kyle Juszczyk, 2 catches, 31 yards. Ray-May McLeod, 3rd, had 1 catch. Chris Conley, 1 catch. George Kittle, only 2 catches for 4 yards. Wow, didn't do anything. Jair Brown was the man who got the interception, but Fred Warner with 9 tackles and 4 assists was the stud of this defense for the 49ers. Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Chase Young, all getting sacks. Good stuff, boys. There was a very interesting moment where Darrell Luter Jr. On a punt, it hit the back of his foot, and the ball bounced, and Ray McLeod Jr. was not able to get on it, and that was a costly turnover, which led to a Chiefs touchdown. Very unfortunate. Jake Moody, 3 of 3 on field goals. 55 was the longest. He actually set the record in the game for the longest kick in Super Bowl history, and it was then broken the next quarter by Harrison Butker with a 57-yarder. It was pretty funny. Mitch Wishnowsky, though, had 3 punts, 50.8 average. Absolutely amazing. 254 yards on 5 of his punts, actually. It was not 3. He had 3 in the 20, which is very good punting. Chiefs stats, Patrick Mahomes, 34 for 46, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns and interception, and rushed 9 times for 66 yards. He's good. It's unfortunate he's good. He became the modern-day Brady faster than Brady became Brady, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that's why people are irritated with him. Isaiah Pacheco held to only 59 yards on 18 carries. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire did absolutely nothing. And his betting line was under 9.5 yards, which I found fascinating. Travis Kelce, 9 catches, 93 yards. Was trying to get the ball as much as he can to impress his super popular girlfriend. Not even going to name her. But Cole Hardman, 3 catches, 57 yards at a touchdown. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 3 catches, 20 yards at a touchdown. It's funny. They caught the touchdown passes. Rashee Rice, 6 catches, 39 yards. Couldn't get the yardages up. Isaiah Pacheco, 6 catches, 33 yards. Just not much going on. Justin Watson, 3 catches, 54 yards. Nick Bolton, 5 tackles for 8 assists. Was doing pretty good. George Karlaftis had 0.5 sacks. Who had the other 0.5 then? It was Justin Reed. I was going to say, why isn't it tell me? Harrison Butker, 4 for 4 on field goals, 57 longest, hit the Super Bowl record. 13 points put up just by Harrison Butker. So you can thank half the point totals from Harrison Butker kicking field goals and extra points. Tommy Townsend on 5 punts, averaged 50.8 as well. Good punting. The punters are good for both these teams. Townsend and Wishnowsky, very impressive. But yeah, that'll end the season. Chiefs get their 15th win of the year. Wow. How about that? And I just realized that to win the Super Bowl, you would have to win 20 games, because I assume you'd become the number 1 seed. So you'd have to go 20-0. It used to be 18-0. But, wow, pretty impressive when you think about it like that. For my little fantasy football league with me and Dane and Tyler and Landon, my 3 buddies, we got our points totals for our little playoff run. Dane comes in 4th with 268.76 points. He lost all but 3 of his players in the opening wildcard round, which was unfortunate. Christian McCaffrey was definitely the MVP, 31 points in the divisional round, 29 in the conference, and 30 fantasy points in the Super Bowl. You just can't beat him, but unfortunately, Dane didn't have enough players to gain more points. Landon coming in 3rd with 336.26 points. He had Rashee Rice in the Super Bowl with 10.4 fantasy points, and Patrick Mahomes, who after putting up 18 points in the wild card, 18 in the divisional, and 15 in the conference, explodes for 25.92 in the Super Bowl. Very impressive from Patty Mahomes. Gus Edwards didn't do much for him. Aaron Jones had a great wildcard game looking back on it. And Jake Ferguson had probably the best fantasy performance, I think, of the playoffs with 37.3 points for the Cowboys, despite losing to the Packers in the wildcard. I was the runner-up with 352.13 points. Isaiah Pacheco got me 15 in the Super Bowl. Debo got me 7, and George Kittle got me 2. Just nothing from the boys. Nothing from them. Best performances, Josh Allen got me 33 in the wild card and 30 in the divisional. Pacheco did give me 18 in the conference and 17 in the divisional. David Montgomery had 19 for me in the conference game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 18, 21, and 15, respectively, for each 3 of his games. And George Kittle did have 18 in the divisional round, but decided not to show up for the Super Bowl, which makes me sad. Poor George Kittle. And as we get to our champion, Tyler Brishke, 389.89 fantasy points for him. 18 by Harrison Butker in the Super Bowl was so clutch. Travis Kelce got 18 in the Super Bowl as well, and Brandon Ayuk had 7.9. Lamar Jackson had 36 for him in the divisional. That was massive. CeeDee Lamb, 20 in the wild card. Devontae Smith, 22 in the wild card. And Harrison Butker just absolutely exploding. One of the best kickers in the game. Absolute pleasure watching Harrison Butker kick that ball. Congratulations to Tyler. You win pride? I think you just win the pride of being better than us, if you will. But I'll be back next year, and I'm going to try and organize fantasy football playoffs better. Maybe try and get it more strategic or something. I don't know. We'll work all that out. But with that, we're on to our final thing of the episode, our final tad bit, and that is reviewing UFC Vegas 86, which went down this Saturday. We had 14 fights to look at, and 14 fights to go over. Let's get right on into it. Kicking off the night, we had, of course, I was going to say, of course, we had a female fight to kick off the evening, but no, we actually had a promising bantamweight bout between Daniel Marcos and Algorquin, and unfortunately, it was stopped in the second round due to a no contest, and it was after Daniel Marcos hit Algorquin with a low blow on accident, and Algorquin couldn't continue. So a no contest opening the night is never promising, but just from how the fight was going, Daniel Marcos was clearly outboxing Algorquin, the Mongolian murderer. Daniel Marcos will remain undefeated, but will now have a no contest on his record. It was such a sour way to open the evening, and I was really, really happy for Marcos, the way it was going. And then round two, I just checked in, and I was like, dang, Algorquin got hit too hard in his bottom region. Oh well, Daniel Marcos will be back at bantamweight, I'm sure of it. We'll see what happens. We did, though, get the action going next up with Haider Emil and Fern Garcia at featherweight. And to my surprise, I correctly predicted Haider Emil would win. By the way, we went 9-4 on the whole card, 4-2 on the main card. So pretty good on picks for the card. I'm surprised Haider Emil got the finish, but this was honestly my unofficial fight of the night. There wasn't even a fight in the night on this card, but props to Fern Garcia. He showed some true heart in here because Haider Emil was just throwing at him. He dropped him in round one. Fern made it to round two, but nonetheless, it was a standing TKO. Totals from the fight: 79 significant strikes for Haider Emil, 26 for Fern Garcia, 109 total strikes for Emil, only 31 for Fern Garcia. I mean, oh my gosh, Haider Emil was just bringing it to him. I love the energy from Haider Emil, winning his UFC debut, improving to 9-0 and getting his 5th career TKO. Very impressive stuff for Haider Emil. As for Fern Garcia, 4th straight loss, 0-4 now in the UFC, just got finished. That's probably bye-bye, Fern. That's probably all she wrote for you, but it was a less than stellar run. But I mean, way to break in new contenders into the division. And this was bloody. I mean, and Fern Garcia at times was throwing up submissions, trying to get Haider Emil out of there. He'd hit Haider with a big shot, but Haider Emil was just locked in, had the range going, had the power. Credit to him. Winning at featherweight, we'll see how he does moving forward. Next up, as I walked over to my buddy's house to hang out for the evening, it was a light heavyweight matchup between Zach Pauga and Bogdan Guskov, and I'll be damned, the Uzbekistan did it, getting his 13th career knockout, improving to 15-3 as he knocks out Zach Pauga in round number 1, earning himself 50K performance bonus, and this was nasty. Pauga was outlanding him just slightly, 17 significant strikes to 10, 25 total strikes to 19, actually, in favor of Bogdan. Looking at it, but Bogdan was just locked on his head, and he hit Pauga with an uppercut, kind of wobbled him, clipped him again. I mean, 4 to 5 straight shots all on the chin, and Pauga went out cold on the canvas. I knew Bogdan Guskov was legit. I knew that Volkan Ozdemir may have been too much for him in his UFC debut back in September, but this was just perfect. Perfect for Bogdan Guskov. Very excellent. And his 13th career knockout, a 100% finish rate does Bogdan have a nickname for the Cesarovich? Ooh, maybe, I don't know what that means, but oh well, Zach Pauga now sits at 1-3 in the UFC with two brutal knockouts, like actually getting knocked out losses. I don't know if he'll be back, but I do know Bogdan will be back. I don't know who. At light heavyweight, there is a matchup between Ion Kudalaba and Felipe Lins, which you mentioned earlier, going down on the prelims at UFC 299, March 9th. I think Bogdan versus the winner of that could be very intriguing. Good win for the Bogdan Guskov. He did call out Anthony Smith, so that could be another option too. Anthony Smith, currently ranked number 10 at men's light heavyweight. Keeping the prelims a rolling, we had Max Griffin and Jeremiah Wells, and this was a toss-up for me. The split decision does not go in my favor, though, as Max Griffin wins the split decision over Jeremiah Wells. Max Payne Griffin still getting it done at 38 years old. Good stuff, man. I mean, totals from the fight, 32 significant strikes to 26 in favor of Jeremiah Wells. 43 total strikes to 36 in favor of Jeremiah Wells. Both men landed a takedown and had a minute 40 of control time. Absolutely incredible. Round one looks like pretty even. Both men landed their takedown round number one. More control time for Wells, but Max Griffin had more total strikes. Not much to really judge in this fight. Round two, Jeremiah Wells outstriking him a bit more. Griffin probably winning the third round. I kind of thought Jeremiah Wells won round 1 and 2, but at the same time, if you're going to a split decision, it's anyone's game. Jeremiah Wells loses his second straight fight, which is very unfortunate. Pennsylvania native will now be 0-2. His last 2 times out, but not too bad of a loss. As for Max Griffin, has been win-loss since 2021. Keeping it rolling. Keeping it rolling, Max Griffin. Yeah, that's literally nothing happened. Literally nothing happened in this fight. It was embarrassing. Is embarrassing the right term? Is embarrassing the right term for this? It was just boring. Boring is all the words we can use for this. As we kept it moving, though, things didn't get better until our final prelim. As our next up, we had Marcin Prachnio beating Devin Clark by unanimous decision. By the way, I did correctly predict that Bogdan Guskov would get a knockout. I did predict in round 2, and I did predict Marcin Prachnio would win a decision over Devin Clark. His karate stance helped him in this one. Outstrikes doubled all of Devin Clark's stats. 101 significant strikes at 53, 112 total strikes at 53, and even landed a takedown. But the tail of this is that Prachnio outstruck him in round 1, got done. Same thing in round 2. In round 3, though, I mean, these two boys were gassed. They were throwing for the fences. I mean, opportunities for both men to get knocked out. I actually thought Prachnio was out of it at points, but he was just eating shots and guy just walking him off. I mean, this was absolutely hectic, but not in like a fun way. It was kind of fun, but not like a technical way. It was kind of like, wow, look how tired these big boys are. We need to get them. We need to get them on the stool. But yeah, Marcin Prachnio, good win for the kid. Been win-loss since 2021. Back in the win column here, though. Good for him. Devin Clark is now on a 2-fight losing streak. And if we go all the way back to April of 2022, he's gone 2-3. He's been knocked out, been submitted, gotten a knockout. I mean, he's hit or miss, but Prachnio, good win for you. There you go. Next up, we had our only women's fight of the whole night as a women's strawweight bout between Loma Lukbunmi and Bruna Brazil went down, and I picked Bruna Brazil by decision, and instead it went to Loma Lukbunmi. Totals from the fight, significant strikes 58-28 in favor of Loma. Total strikes 73-52 in favor of Loma. Both women landed a takedown, more control time to Bruna Brazil with 2.5 minutes, 2:55 seconds for Loma. I mean, Loma just outstruck her. That's all there is to it. Outstruck her through all 3 rounds. Very close. Not much to judge. The majority of the strikes she was throwing were to the body and at distance. So she's got that. But a boring fight. I was literally talking to 2 of my buddies during this fight. We were barely even watching. It was just so boring. Just, it's very unfortunate that it was bad, but that's what it is. Loma Lukbunmi now on a 3-fight win streak, though. Okay, that is actually not too bad at all. And she's 6-2 in the UFC with her only losses to currently, and I quote, the number 10 and number 12 women at women's strawweight. So Loma Lukbunmi could be looking at a ranked opponent soon. As for Bruna Brazil, she is now 1-2 in the UFC. 1-loss streak, though. Hit or miss, but man, I might have to ride with Loma Lukbunmi next time out. Impress me here with just staying technical, getting it done. Good win for her. Next up, lightweight and Beloji Oki. Okay, Beloji Oki, he'd been coming off of a nasty round 1 knockout of Dylan Salvador back in August on the Contender Series. Out of his 9 victories, out of his 8 at the time, 6 victories have been by finish. He was on an 8-fight win streak. I was expecting some ferocity from Beloji Oki as he took on Timothy Kwamba, who had just fought last weekend. Okay, he won last weekend and was fighting again on short notice, a week's notice. And this went to a split decision, which gives me no promise for Belogi Oki's UFC career. And don't get me wrong, Belogi outstruck him significantly, 60-33, total 61-35. Both men landed a takedown. Belogi defended 5 of the 6 that Timothy shot at him. I mean, neither man had much control time, just under 2 minutes for both. But yeah, I mean, round 1, Belogi did outstrike him more. Round 2, Timmy outstruck him narrowly, and then round 3, Belogi, not really narrowly by 8. He outstruck him so kind of narrowly. This was not impressive at all, but Belogi is now on a 9-fight win streak. The Zulu Warrior will remain in the UFC. And that's for Timmy Kawamba right now. He won on the Contender Series by decision, not the most exciting, didn't get a contract. But after taking a guy like Belogi to a split decision on a week's notice, I mean, after less fighting nonetheless, come on, let's get this guy another opportunity. This was all right. Final prelim of the night is Carlos Prates took on Trevin Giles, and we had a round 3 KO for Carlos Prates, but instead that boy decided to knock out Trevin Giles in round number 2, and out of nowhere too. I love the out of nowhere knockouts, and this was not even going in Carlos Prates' favor. Trevin Giles was out striking him, clearly just getting the better of him in the exchanges. But then Prates kind of woke up, clipped him with a right to the head, dropped him down, didn't even follow up. That was night for Trevin Giles. Carlos Prates wins his UFC debut and gets his 13th career knockout, and he's now on an 8-fight win streak. Good win for the Nightmare Carlos Prates, 18-6 professionally. Trevin Giles will fall to 0-2 in his last 2 fights, 2-4 his last 6. Hasn't won since March of 2023. But yeah, tough loss for Trevin Giles. That fight he was looking good in, but Carlos Prates just pulled it out the bag. Good stuff for him. Oh my gosh, and Trevin Giles was nearly doubling his total strike, 68-37. And yeah, Prates, excellent stuff. Get him on the Brazil card. Of course, Carlos Prates from Brazil. They're going there May. UFC 301 was at May 4th. Yeah, I would love to see that for Carlos Prates. Very, very fun. So yeah, prelims didn't treat us too kindly. The only big moments on the prelims was Bogdan, Hyder, and Carlos. Other than that, we had 4 boring decisions and a no contest. But the guys who got finishes, good for them. By the way, Carlos Prates got $50K for his finish. As we moved into the main card, vibes were high. Okay, I was almost promising. I'm like, okay, you know what? The prelims are the prelims. Okay, it doesn't have to be good. No one really watched them. Get the main card going, and Rodolfo Vieira, you know, I had Armin Petrosian picked all week, and I changed it last minute to Rodolfo Vieira, and it paid off as he gets a round 1 arm triangle, Armin Petrosian, to get $50K, and that will be Rodolfo Vieira's 9th career submission for the black belt hunter. Good win for Rodolfo. That makes it 2 straight wins, and by the way, he now has 4 arm triangles in the UFC, 5-2 in the UFC. All those fights, but Chris Curtis have gone the distance, and all those fights, he's gotten a submission or been submitted. Pretty funny. Armin Petrosian, tough loss for you. Snapped a little 2-fight win streak, but Armin just can't grapple. In the short round that this fight lasted, he got taken down 3 of 3 times for 2 minutes and 46 seconds. I mean, Rodolfo just had his number, and you know what? Armin was saying he didn't tap, which was super odd because in the review we looked back, he clearly did tap. He kind of did a little 1-2 tap, like kind of stopped on the 3rd, but it was too late. He had already tapped. Rodolfo Vieira, very impressive at middleweight. I don't really know who to pair him up against. If I'm being honest, I would like to see him fight a grappler next time out, but there's so many unranked middleweights. You got Julian Marquez, Chidi Nchukani, Jun Young Park. Actually, that Jun Young Park, I would like to see that. Jun Young Park versus Rodolfo Vieira. Book that fight. Jun Young Park, talented South Korean fighter. He can grapple, he can strike. Good option for him. But yeah, Rodolfo Vieira got the card going, and I correctly predicted he would get a submission. I said round 2, though. But you know what? Better than nothing. Following that up, gosh darn it, I said Michael Johnson, unanimous decision, and the old bugger did. The 37-year-old gets his 23rd professional victory. Unreal. Michael Johnson, been win-loss since 2021. I swear like a lot of fighters have been like that. As he beats Darius Flowers. Darius Flowers now 0-2 in the UFC. And just the tail of this fight is Michael Johnson being a veteran. 30-27's him. Totals from the fight, Michael Johnson, 61 significant strikes at 33, 80 total strikes at 52, 4 of 8 on takedowns for 6 minutes. We saw a grappling Michael Johnson in this one. And, he's out striking him on the feet in every round. But just in the final round, Michael Johnson took a veteran move, kept taking him down, getting into side control, getting into top control. Michael Johnson was doing what he needed to get, the win. Very good stuff. Very good stuff, Michael Johnson. Happy for you. The Menace, Michael the Menace Johnson. As for Darius Flowers, Beast Mode's his nickname. He's got a weird triangle tattoo. Not even like the Illuminati tattoo. It looks like an Adidas logo. I have no idea. No idea if we're going to see Darius Flowers again. He did not really leave much to be advertised. He didn't really leave much to be desired, but oh well. Michael Johnson, you will live on as a legend, and the unranked lightweights will have to look out for. He can maybe make a title run. If he could get 2 more wins, if he can get a little 3-fight win streak, I'd throw him in there against Bobby Green. A little Rafael dos Anjos action. No, I'm joking. Michael Johnson has way past his prime. But he'll always be the guy who's knocked out Dustin Poirier and was the first man to beat Tony Ferguson. Very fun. Keeping us rolling. My vibes are so high right now. My vibes are so high as Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez, who liked our last podcast post. Thank you so much, RoboCop. Amazing that he liked the podcast. Gets his 9th career knockout as he finishes Brad Tavares in the 3rd round. Absolutely love it. I absolutely loved it. This was absolutely amazing. Gregory Rodriguez, a charm, a darling, if you will. Totals from the fight: Gregory Rodriguez, 71 significant strikes to 37, 79 total strikes to 42, and even went 2 of 6 on takedowns. He decided to start taking down Brad Tavares. And I compared this to Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy back at UFC 2, 66, back in September of 2021, where Gregory Rodriguez just kind of realized in round number 3, I can finish this guy. What am I doing? And he just laid on the pressure onto Brad Tavares, absolutely beat him bloody on the feet. 24 total strikes to 5 in the first 55 seconds. Round number 3, puts on the beat down just as he's about to go down. Jason Hergog steps in and stops it. Gregory Rodriguez, huge win for him, his 2nd straight finish. And after getting knocked out in January of 2023, has bounced back tremendously. And I want to see this boy in the rankings, if I'm being honest. Chris Curtis, less than appetizing performance. I think Chris Curtis versus Gregory Rodriguez would be an amazing bout. Okay, I think that would be a very fun fight. If you ask me, even him versus Roman Dolidze, Chris Curtis or Roman Dolidze versus Gregory Rodriguez, that would be a banger of a fight. As for Brad Tavares, look, he's 36, been around a while, but he's now 1-3 his last 4, been knocked out in 2 of those. It might be time to hang it up, Brad. Been in the UFC since 2010. You know what? You've had a good career, but Gregory Rodriguez continues his ascent. Absolutely amazing. Happy for you, Greg, and I want to see you in the rankings. Not just because you like the podcast, but because I think you got it. I think you got it, girl. We'll take you on American Idol. Is that what they say? I never watched that show. Final 3 fights of the evening, and one of the 3 was good, but we started off Ior Portera and Robert Bazaic, and this makes no sense. Robert Bazaic on a 5-fight win streak, all knockouts. He had finished all his opponents. And Ior Portera had just been brutally finished by Rodolfo Bellato back in December at light heavyweight. So what does Ior Portera do in 2 months? Drops down from 205 to 185. Fights a guy who's been a knockout artist and beats him in a boring unanimous decision. I couldn't believe my eyes. Totals from the fight: a knockdown for Ior Portera in round number 3. Almost finished him, but didn't really have that finishing drive. 67 significant strikes to 32 in favor of Ior Portera. 77 total strikes to 41. Did go 0-4 on takedowns, though. So, was trying to mix it up, but didn't work. Actually had a really funny moment where he tried to do like a leg sweep. He looked like prime Tony Ferguson when he was warming up for his fights. Good win, Ior Portera. Good win for you. You get your 20th career victory. 20-5 now. Snaps a little 2-fight losing streak you were on. But Ior Portera just has had the most random UFC career. Wins on Dana's Contender Series. His 15-fight win streak gets destroyed by Nicola Negomorano. He then retires Mauricio Rua in Brazil in brutal fashion, starts celebrating. Then, in May of last year, gets brutally knocked out by Carlos Ulberg. In December, we mentioned, got brutally knocked out in a fight he was winning. And now he's beating Robert Bazaic. I don't know if Robert Bazaic's going to come back. This was a short notice fight for him. But, good for the 27-year-old from Ukraine. Portera has a giant tattoo of Jesus on the cross on his chest, which is just a wow. It's kind of like a wow image, but I'm very, very happy about that, Ior Portera. Co-main event, Absolutely love it. By the way, I picked Robert Brazilic, so that was unfortunate. But Dan Ige, we did predict. I went Dan Ige round 2 submission for the memes, but obviously I was thinking round 1 knockout. And what is it with Dan 50K Ige when he fights an unranked fighter? He brutally knocks them out in round number 1. This is absolutely crazy. As Dan Ige knocks Andre Fili out halfway through round number 1 to get his 6th career knockout. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And let's go back and forth. And Dan Ige just rocks Fili with an overhand and lands a nasty follow-up punch, puts him out cold. Andre Touchy Fili. Oh my goodness. And Andre Fili, by the way, since 2022 has been win-loss, win-loss. I mean, just come on. And lost that. Win-loss, win-loss. That's for Dan Ige. I don't think you guys understand. Is that Dan Ige, all right, we'll start this back in 2020 when he was on a 6-fight win streak and got a main event against Calvin Kattar, lost that by unanimous decision, then took on the unranked Gavin Tucker and knocked him out cold in 22 seconds. Wow. After that, gets a fight night against Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, and becomes the last man for the Korean Zombie to beat by unanimous decision. After that, loses to Josh Emmett in a very close fight where he got dropped in round 1 but then fought back. Then after that, in June of 2022, got brutally outgrappled by Movsar Evloev. Then, January last year, same scenario, on a 3-fight losing streak. He's fighting an unranked guy in Damon Jackson, knocks him out cold in round number 2. Following that, brutally beats Nate Landwehr in June, then gets outgrappled by Bryce Mitchell in September, and now again, fights an unranked competitor in Andre Fili, and brutally knocks him out in round number 1. Andre Fili, Damon Jackson, Gavin Tucker, I mean, Dan Ige's collecting unranked rings, all right? He's almost there. He needs 3 more unranked fighters to knock out brutally in round number 1 to collect all the rings. I mean, impressive stuff. And I'm happy that he didn't have to fight Leroy Murphy, who, by the way, unfortunately, he got injured. Hopefully we see him back in the summer in the UK. But I'm just happy for Dan Ige, man. You know what? 3-1 his last 4. His losses in the last 4 years. 4 years, his losses are to Calvin Kattar, Chan Sung Jung, Josh Emmett, Movsar Evloev, and Bryce Mitchell. All right. So Dan Ige, who's currently ranked number 13, his only losses are to the number 10, number 8, number 7, and number 5 guys in the division. Dan Ige will move up to the number, I'm going to say 11 spot. I'm going to say 11 spot. I'm putting him past Sadiq and Edson. I'm putting him right at 11. And I want to reward a performance like this. I really want to reward Dan Ige for this. I'm thinking a Giga Chikadze fight. I'm thinking winner of Sodiq Yusuff and Diego Lopez. That could be a fun fight. I'm even going as bold to say Arnold Allen versus Dan Ige. That would be a banger in Manchester in the summer, sold out UK crowd. Dan Ige, Arnold Allen. I've landed on it. That's the fight I want. Plus Arnold Allen, he's coming off a loss. He needs to fight down. And him versus Dan Ige, perfect matchup. As for Andre Fili, very tough. Live by a sword, die by a sword. Gets a beautiful knockout in December. Gets beautifully knocked out in February. That's how the season goes. It's like heartbreak, you know? You got that Christmas spirit, and then the love of your life breaks your heart right before Valentine's Day. Did happen to me, but anyone who has hates to be ya. Sorry. All right, let's get to the main event. Let's wrap up this episode. Not too bad. Just over an hour and 10 minutes. You know, I kind of like when these aren't too long. I was averaging 2 hours for a while, but these have been kind of chiller episodes, if you will, while I kind of wait for specific moments before I revisit UFC 100 and 200. I think we're going to do those the final 2 episodes before UFC 300. Or actually not even the one before the UFC 300, but kind of like before that. And then leading up to WrestleMania, April 6th and 7th, we're going to be doing every WrestleMania, revisiting every WrestleMania, pick out like my favorite match, best moment from all of them, where I was if I was watching them, in like sequences of 4 different decades, like 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, and of course this year is 40. And you know what? The WrestleMania season, you know, I can't help but get into it. As you know, a semi-WWE fan, you know, I only come around this time of year for the Royal Rumble and for WrestleMania, but is what is. Main event, that's what we're here to talk about. I get so sidetracked sometimes. As Jack Hermanson took on Paul, but what's it? My goodness, Joe Pyfer. What am I saying? Takes on Joe Pyfer, and son of a gun, is there a UFC 5 EA Sports curse? Because every fighter they've added has now lost, as Joe Pyfer gets fraud checked by Jack Hermanson. Jack Hermanson, ultimate gatekeeper at 185 pounds. Fraud check is when a fighter is supposed to skyrocket up the rankings and instead gets beat. This happened with, who did this most recently happen with? Let me look at some past fights. Let me find a great example for you guys, because what can I show you guys? I would maybe say, who can I give you guys? Who can I give you? Sodiq Yusuff against Edson Barbosa, kind of a fraud check. Oh, Mike Mallet versus Neil Magny, a perfect example. Mike Mallet at UFC 297 last month was beating Neil Magny and choked in the final round and got TKO'd. That's a fraud check. As for Joe Pyfer, I mean, he started this fight off perfect against Jack Hermanson, all right? Was doing great. Outstruck him in round 1, 24-16. Okay, round 2, Joe Pyfer outstrikes him 22-19, defends a takedown, but it's getting a bit closer in striking. So Joe Pyfer up 2 rounds. Round 3, though, Jack Hermanson puts on the pressure, 37 significant strikes to 20, 43 total strikes to 20, and defends 3 of Joe Pyfer's takedowns. So Jack Hermanson wins round 3. Okay, you know what? It's a 5-round fight. Anything can happen. Going to round 4, Jack Hermanson outstrikes Joe Pyfer 58-23. Defends 3 takedowns significantly, 33-22. Okay, Jack Hermanson has this fight all tied up. And in the final round, takes down Joe Pyfer, 52 total strikes to 6, 3 minutes of takedowns, 16 significant strikes to only 4. Jack Hermanson humbles the cocky Joe Pyfer. Unreal. And this made me sad. I feel like the consensus was everyone was thinking Joe Pyfer gets a knockout. Instead, Jack Hermanson refused to go down. Now, round 1, Joe Pyfer hit him with some good shots, but Joe might have gassed. Jack used his advantage, and it's 48-47 across the board as Jack Hermanson gets his first win since December of 2022. Let me say this again. This is even crazier. Jack Hermanson is win-lose since 2019. I mean, this boy has been win-losing a long time. Most notably, I mean, he's been knocked out by Jared Cannonier, fraud checked Calvin Gastelum. Loses a decision to Marvin Vettori, fraud checks Edmund Shabazian. Loses to Sean Strickland, fraud checks Rick Curtis. Loses Roman Dolidze, which is that win did not age well after watching Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov. And then we see him versus Joe Pyfer checking him. Jack Hermanson, though, good win for him now. 24th career victory for the Joker. As for Joe Pyfer, only his 3rd career loss, and that's not too bad. I mean, come on, guys. He went from Alan Amandowski, Gerald Mershart, and Abdul Razak Al-Hassan to Jack Hermanson. It was clearly too big of a jump for Joe Pyfer, although he did win the first 2 rounds. If it was a 3-round fight, he'd have won. Joe Pyfer, I would like to see him take on someone like Marc-Andre Barriault, maybe even someone like Abus Magomedov, Gregory Rodriguez, dare I even say. I'd even say Ior Portera. There's a lot of unranked middleweights. Let's not throw them up to the dogs, but it's kind of funny that now him, Charles Jourdain, Mike Mallet, and who was the other Canadian they added to UFC 5? They had Mayra Bueno Silva. They've all lost. I mean, Zhang Wei Li's probably going to destroy Yan Chaonin. I mean, Albazi's fight got canceled. We'll see how Halt Nalmeida and Ian Gary do, but if they lose, then the UFC 5 sports curse is real. So real. Jack Hermanson, though. That's a shame. Joe Pyfer's on a 5-fight win streak, and it was snapped. Jack is currently ranked number 11. He did lose to Roman Dolidze, who's ranked 10, but Roman just lost. Jack just won, so maybe Jack Hermanson gets bumped up to 10. I've seen some people suggest he fight Nasruddin Imavov, currently ranked number 8. I can also get behind that fight. Nasruddin, as impressive as his win over Roman Dolidze was, it does kind of leave some questions. So you could maybe do that fight. You could even do Jack Hermanson versus the loser of Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa. There's some options there. Winner of Paul Craig and Kyle Barallo versus him. Plenty of options for Jack Hermanson, but no fight of the night on tonight's card. We go 9-4 predictions, 4-2 on the main card. Bogdan Guskov, Carlos Prates, Rodolfo Vieira, and Danny Ige all get performance bonuses for their beautiful finishes. Very good stuff. But I will say, another doozy main event going the distance. Not exciting at all. that UFC really needs to stop going to the Apex. It really needs to stop going to Apex. Now, the next 2 weekends, amazing. Absolutely amazing. We go to Anaheim for UFC 298. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ian Topuria. Turn in this Thursday for a full card breakdown, by the way. Absolutely pumped for that card. Going to be amazing as well. February 24th, we go to Mexico City. Are you kidding me? Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval 2 and Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega 2. I mean, come on. It just does not get much better than that. Does not get much better than that. But then we get to March. We're back at the Apex with Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Oh boy. But then we get UFC 299, Miami, Florida. So March 9th saves us. March 9th saves us. UFC 299, headlined by Sean O'Malley and Marlon Vera. You get Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint Denis, Kevin Hall and Michael Page, Gilbert Burns, Jack Della Valle, Pierre Young, I mean, oh my gosh, 299 is loaded. And then we go to the Apex for Tai Tuivasa, Marcin Tybura. I'm sleeping. Then we go to the Apex for Amanda Hebus and Rose Namajunas. UFC, are you just giving away viewers? I mean, come on. We do get to go to Atlantic City, New Jersey, so we get a crowd. That will be better. Then we're at the Apex for Marvin Vettori and Brendan Allen, which I do kind of like those guys. So, I mean, I'm going to be a little lenient on that criticism, but yet again, that card's not stacked at all. And then UFC 300, April in Las Vegas. Boom, boom, boom. But yes, out of our next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, out of our next 9, dare I even say 10? Out of our next 10 UFC events, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 are going to be at the UFC Apex. The UFC Apex been producing some very underwhelming fights, but man, I don't know. Hopefully it'll turn around. But on UFC 298, this upcoming Saturday, I mean, come on. Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa, co-main event. Jeff Neal and Ian Gary. Boom. Merab Dvalishvili and Henry Cejudo. Are you kidding me? Roman Kopylov puts his 5-fight win streak on the line against Anthony Hernandez's 6-fight win streak. Justin Tafa, the knockout artist, taking on the ranked Marcos Rogelio de Lima. Amanda Lemos and Mackenzie Dern, fresh off of brutal losses, looking to rebound. You get Rinya Nakamura, the undefeated Japanese sensation. Zhang Mingyang and Brenton Ribeiro, 2 killers from Dana White's Contender Series and road to the UFC. You get the return of Val Woodburn, who got knocked out by Bo Nick. Okay, I've run out of people to hype up, but you get it. UFC 298 is loaded. Absolutely amazing. If I'm ranking events in 2024 as of right now, I am going to say UFC 297 has been the best. Then UFC Fight Night, Uncle Ivan Wachter. Then I will say this was better than last weekend's card, but that doesn't say much. That does not say much. This was better than last weekend's card, but that doesn't say much. So that'll do it. That'll freaking do it for this episode. But I don't know. Could have been a better card. But nonetheless, we get UFC, so I shouldn't be too negative. And I play silver on Verdict MMA for my predictions. By the way, follow me on Verdict MMA, ZR2002. I'm almost getting my first red star on my black belt. You know, I'm good at picking like that. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And, you know, it's Monday. You don't know if you're going to listen to this right when this comes out Monday night, if you're going to listen to this Tuesday, Wednesday, but make this week your you-know-what. You know what? Conquer this week. I got a lot of stuff to do. You know, I'm worried about internships. I'm worried about my resume getting all touched up. I got homework in all 6 of my classes. I got tests to do, quizzes to do. I have so much to do, but guess what, guys? Give it up to God. He will provide for you. Amen. I just want to say, everyone, have an amazing day, and I will catch you next time on the Surprise Jab Podcast.